The deceptive invitation, the message that changed everything. Captain Sarah Chun stood in the communications bay of Earth's orbital defense station, staring at the holographic message that had just arrived from the deepest regions of space. The blue light flickered as alien symbols translated themselves into human text. After 5 years of the bloodiest war humanity had ever fought, the Kalari Empire was asking for peace talks. Sarah's weathered hands traced the scars on her uniform, each one a reminder of battles fought against impossible odds. The Kalari had superior technology, larger fleets, and weapons that could crack planets in half. Their crystalline ships moved like liquid mercury through space, and their energy shields had deflected every human weapon until desperate engineers found ways to make kinetic rounds punch through their defenses. The war had started when human explorers accidentally discovered a Kalari mining operation on what they thought was an uninhabited world. The aliens had reacted with swift brutality, declaring humans a threat to galactic order. Colony after colony fell to their advanced fleets. Millions of humans died or fled to the inner systems, wondering if Earth itself would survive. Now, suddenly, they wanted to talk. The diplomatic mission 3 days later, Sarah found herself aboard the diplomatic vessel Meridian, a ship hastily converted from a cargo hauler into humanity's hope for peace. The cramped bridge buzzed with activity as her hand-picked crew prepared for the journey to neutral space. Dr. Marcus Webb, humanity's leading expert on alien languages and cultures, hunched over his translation equipment in the corner. His gray hair had turned completely white during the war years, and his eyes held the weight of studying an enemy that seemed to enjoy causing pain. Webb had decoded more Kalari communications than any other human alive, and he understood their psychology better than most. Lieutenant Commander Jake Torres handled navigation and security. His mechanical left arm, a replacement for the one he lost during the Battle of Proxima, clicked softly as he input coordinates for the jump to the Concordia space station. Torres had seen more combat than anyone else on the ship, and his instincts had kept them all alive through impossible situations. Engineer Lisa Park worked frantically in the lower decks, making final modifications to systems that officially did not exist. Her job was to ensure the Meridian could handle whatever surprises awaited them. Park had a gift for making broken things work and making working things deadlier. The journey to Concordia station took 6 days through hyperspace. During that time, Sarah noticed troubling patterns in the communications they intercepted. Kalari military channels were unusually active for a species supposedly preparing for peace. Fleet movements suggested major redeployments, but not the kind that indicated forces pulling back from human space. Arrival at Concordia Station hung in the void between star systems like a massive metal flower, its arms stretching out in all directions. The structure was ancient, built by a long-dead civilization, and now maintained as neutral ground for galactic diplomacy. As the Meridian approached, Sarah counted the ships already docked. Too many were Kalari vessels, and their positioning suggested military formation rather than diplomatic arrangement. The station's docking bay was enormous, easily large enough to hold 100 ships. But what caught Sarah's attention was not the size, but the careful placement of Kalari cruisers near every entrance. Their weapons were powered down according to diplomatic protocol, but their targeting systems remained active. Ambassador Patricia Reynolds, Earth's chief diplomat, met them at the airlock. Her usually confident demeanor seemed strained as she briefed them on the situation. The Kalari delegation had arrived 3 days early and immediately began making demands about security, arrangements and meeting protocols that seemed designed to isolate the human representatives. The main conference chamber was a vast circular room with transparent walls that offered a stunning view of space. Representatives from dozens of species filled the tiered seating, their various forms creating a bizarre gallery of galactic life. Some looked almost human, Others resembled insects or living crystals, and a few defied any earthly comparison. The Kalari Delegation High Commander's X-High led the Kalari delegation from the center platform. His crystalline form caught the light from distant stars and scattered it in rainbow patterns across the chamber walls. When he spoke, his voice resonated through translation devices with the sound of breaking glass mixed with wind chimes. The peace treaty documents were massive, written in 17 different languages and covering thousands of pages of legal text. Human translators had worked for weeks to ensure they understood every clause, but the sheer complexity made comprehensive analysis nearly impossible in the time allowed. As Ambassador Reynolds began the opening ceremonies, Sarah noticed Dr. Webb's increasingly worried expression. He was speed reading through sections of the treaty on his portable translator, his face growing paler with each page. Hidden clauses and growing suspicions. During the first recess, Webb pulled Sarah aside with disturbing news. Buried deep in the treaty's legal language were clauses that seemed designed to give the Kalari advantages they had never achieved through warfare. Sections about territorial rights would effectively grant them control over strategic human systems. Trade agreements would give them access to Earth's industrial centers and population records. Most troubling were the enforcement mechanisms. If either side violated the treaty, the injured party had the right to take immediate action to restore the balance. But the definitions of violation were written in ways that would make almost any human military activity grounds for Kalari retaliation. Lieutenant Commander Torres reported equally disturbing observations from his monitoring of local space. Kalari ships continued arriving at Concordia Station, far more than any diplomatic mission would require. Their formations suggested they were preparing for coordinated action, not peaceful negotiation. Engineer Park discovered that the station's communication systems had been modified since the last diplomatic conference. New transmitters had been installed that could send signals across the galaxy simultaneously, the kind of equipment needed to coordinate a massive military operation. Sarah began to understand the true scope of what they faced. This was not a peace conference at all. It was the setup for the final phase of humanity's destruction. The trap reveals itself on the third day of negotiations, as Ambassador Reynolds prepared to sign the preliminary agreements. Sarah's worst fears were confirmed. Torres intercepted a coded transmission from the Kalari fleet to their home command. The message was simple and terrifying. Human leadership isolated. Execute final solution on my signal. The final solution was the Kalari term for complete species extermination. Sarah realized with growing horror that the entire conference was designed to gather every important human leader in one isolated location. All Kalari fleets moved into position around Earth and the major colonies. Once the treaty was signed and humanity's guard was down, the aliens would strike simultaneously at every human world. The treaty signing ceremony began with elaborate rituals as cameras from across the galaxy recorded what they believed would be a historic moment of peace. Alien musicians played haunting melodies while representatives from dozens of species offered speeches about cooperation and understanding. But Sarah was not watching the ceremony. Her eyes were fixed on the displays showing space around the station. More Kalari ships had arrived, their weapon systems charging despite diplomatic protocols. Their formation was perfect for a coordinated attack on any ships trying to escape the station. High Commander's X-High stood at the ceremonial table, his crystalline form gleaming under the bright lights. Ambassador Reynolds approached with the ceremonial pen that would make the treaty official. The entire galaxy held its breath as two species that had been at war for 5 years prepared to make peace. Then Sarah's communicator vibrated with an incoming message from Earth Command. The transmission was brief but devastating. Kalari fleets attacking all major colonies simultaneously. Earth under siege. Execute Protocol Omega immediately. Protocol Omega Activate Sarah smiled grimly as she activated the hidden transmitter. In her uniform, across the galaxy, human ships that had been disguised as civilian vessels suddenly revealed their true nature. The merchant convoy near Mars opened cargo containers to expose massive railguns. The research station, orbiting Jupiter, activated defense systems that had been built in secret over the past 2 years. On Concordia Station, the trap the Kalari had set for humanity became humanity's trap for them. Human maintenance workers throughout the station suddenly produced weapons and began coordinating with mathematical precision. Every vital system, every communication relay, every security checkpoint had been infiltrated by humans who had spent months preparing for exactly this moment. The Kalari had made the same mistake that many of humanity's enemies had made throughout history. They assumed that because humans seemed weaker, they would be easy to defeat. They never considered that humans might be prepared for betrayal, or that humanity's greatest strength had always been the ability to adapt and survive against impossible odds. Asterisk. As alarms began wailing throughout Concordia Station, and Kalari ships moved to attack positions, Sarah opened a communication channel to all human forces in the sector. Her words were calm but filled with deadly determination. This is Captain Chun to all human vessels. The Kalari have revealed their true intentions. Protocol Omega is now in effect. Show them why you never corner a species that evolved on a world trying to kill them every single day. The real war was about to begin, and this time, humanity was ready. Asterisk, the counterstrike. Hidden preparation, what the Kalari Empire had not. Known was that humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario since the day the first peace overtures arrived. While diplomats talked publicly about the possibility of ending the war, military commanders and intelligence officers worked in secret to ensure human survival. Admiral Patricia Kane coordinated the human response from her hidden command center, buried deep beneath Luna's surface. For 18 months, she had been implementing what became known as the Lazarus Protocol. Every human ship in space, whether military or civilian, had been equipped with concealed weapons and communication systems. Every human colony had constructed hidden defenses. Every important facility had backup plans and escape routes. The protocol was named after the biblical figure who rose from the dead, because that was exactly what humanity intended to do if the Kalari tried to finish them off. As alerts flooded. And from across human space, Kane watched her carefully laid plans unfold with deadly precision. The Kalari had expected to find helpless human worlds protected by token defense forces. Instead, they discovered that humanity had turned their entire civilization into a weapon. The battle for Earth. The Kalari First Fleet, comprised of over 300 of their most advanced warships, dropped out of hyperspace expecting to find Earth defended by perhaps 50 human vessels. They found over 2,000 ships waiting for them, many disguised as orbital platforms, space stations, and industrial facilities until the moment they opened fire. Captain Maria Santos commanded what appeared to be a simple cargo hauler in Earth's shipping lanes. When Kalari destroyers moved to eliminate what they thought was a helpless transport, Santos's ship suddenly unfolded like a deadly flower. Hidden weapon ports opened to reveal experimental plasma cannons that fired streams of superheated matter at velocities the Kalari had never encountered. The aliens' energy shields, designed to deflect their own crystal-based weapons, proved useless against the unpredictable nature of human innovation. Santos and her crew had spent months developing weapons that specifically countered Kalari technology, turning their own scientific advantages against them. Dr. Elizabeth Chun, Sarah's younger sister, worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the Orbital Research Station Newton. Her team had discovered that Kalari crystal technology relied on specific harmonic frequencies to maintain cohesion. By broadcasting counter frequencies at the right amplitude, They could cause Kalari ships to literally shake themselves apart. The first test came when a Kalari battle cruiser targeted the Newton with its primary weapon, instead of trying to destroy the attacking ship. Qin activated her harmonic disruptor. The enemy vessel's crystalline hull began vibrating at increasing frequencies until structural failure tore it apart from the inside. Concordia Station burns back at Concordia Station. Captain Sarah Chun led her team through corridors that had become war zones. The Kalari forces that were supposed to execute the human delegation found themselves fighting an enemy that had infiltrated every level of the supposedly neutral facility. Dr. Marcus Webb proved that his years of studying alien psychology had practical applications beyond translation. He used his knowledge of Kalari behavior patterns to predict their movements, allowing human defenders to set ambushes in corridors and chambers throughout the station. Lieutenant Commander Torres's mechanical arm proved to be more than a replacement for lost limb. Hidden within its artificial structure were hacking tools and communication devices that allowed him to take control of station systems. He turned the Kalari's own security measures against them, locking them in sections of the station while opening escape routes for human personnel. Engineer Lisa Park had spent her time on the station doing more than diplomatic engineering. She had been placing specialized charges throughout the structure's key systems. When Sarah gave the signal, Park activated devices that disabled the station's artificial gravity in Kalari-controlled sections, while maintaining it in areas where humans were fighting. The Kalari, adapted to the consistent gravitational fields of their crystalline home worlds, found themselves helpless in zero gravity, while humans, who had spent generations learning to work in space, gained a decisive advantage. The merchant fleet strikes. Back Captain Danny Walsh had commanded merchant vessels for 20 years before the war began. His ship, the Free Trader, looked like countless other cargo haulers that moved goods between human worlds. The Kalari had ignored it completely when they began their attacks on human shipping lanes. That was exactly what Walsh had been hoping for. When Kalari forces moved to secure the Mars system, they expected to find defenseless transport ships and mining platforms. Instead, Walsh's merchant fleet revealed itself to be a coordinated military force that had been training for this moment for over a year. Cargo containers opened to expose missile launchers. Fuel tanks split apart to reveal fighter bays. Mining platforms activated weapon systems that had been disguised as industrial equipment. In minutes, what had appeared to be a collection of helpless civilian vessels became a fleet capable of challenging Kalari. Military superiority. The psychological impact was devastating. The Kalari had built their empire on the assumption that superior technology would always defeat inferior opponents. But humans were proving that determination, creativity, and the willingness to take desperate risks could overcome even the most advanced weapons. The intelligence. War Commander Robert Kim ran humanity's intelligence operations from a facility that officially did not exist. His network of agents, analysts, and communication specialists had been monitoring Kalari activities since the first day of the war. They knew about Kalari fleet movements before many Kalari commanders did. When the trap at Concordia Station was sprung, Kim's people were ready with intelligence that turned the tables on their enemies. Every Kalari communication was intercepted and decoded. Every fleet movement was tracked and reported. The aliens found themselves fighting an enemy that could see their every move while remaining invisible themselves. The most devastating intelligence. Victory came when Kim's team intercepted High Commander X-High's personal communications with the Kalari home government. The messages revealed growing panic among alien leadership as their perfect plan turned into a disaster. The Kalari had expected the war to end within days. Instead, they faced an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with every battle. Their alliance of subject species began to question whether continued support for the war was worth the cost. Species. Defection, the hegemony of Vortax, had provided this Kalari with their most effective shock troops. But after watching human special forces destroy their major military installations using tactics they had never encountered, Vortax leaders began reconsidering their alliance, the crystal beings known. As the Nexari had supplied advanced technology that gave the Kalari their initial advantages. But when human saboteurs turned their own weapons against them, using methods that violated every principle of civilized warfare, the Nexari started withdrawing their support. Dr. Marcus Webb analyzed the intelligence reports and realized that the Kalari Empire was not really unified at all. It was a collection of different species held together by fear and the promise of easy victories. Now that humans were proving to be dangerous opponents, the alliance was cracking. The final battle asterisk. The decisive engagement came when the remaining Kalari forces gathered near the edge of human space for what everyone knew would be the last major battle of the war. High Commander Zex High had assembled every ship he could find for a desperate final assault on Earth itself. Admiral Kang met them with the entire human fleet, including ships that had been hidden in asteroid belts and behind planetary shields since the war began. The battle lasted 18 hours and involved over 5,000 vessels from dozens of different species. But the outcome was decided not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by human adaptability and the refusal to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. Human pilots flew their ships into enemy formations, using tactics that seemed insane to alien minds. Human crews sacrificed their vessels to save others, turning every battle into a lesson about what species were capable of when fighting for survival. Victory and understanding. When the last Kalari battlecruiser surrendered, the galaxy had learned something important about humanity. They were not the primitive species that many had assumed. They were survivors who had evolved on one of the most dangerous worlds in known space, and that evolution had given them abilities that more advanced civilizations had never developed. The peace treaty that followed was very different from the one the Kalari had originally proposed. It was negotiated between equals, with human representatives who commanded respect rather than pity. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of assuming that technological superiority guaranteed victory. Captain Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the Meridian as they returned to Earth, watching the stars that no longer held the threat of alien invasion. The war had cost humanity dearly, but it had also proven something important. When cornered, humans did not surrender. They adapted, they innovated, and they found ways to turn their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. The Kalari had promised peace, but prepared for genocide. Humanity had prepared for both, and that preparation had saved not just human civilization, but the principle that strength comes not from technology alone, but from the will to survive and the courage to fight for what matters most. The galaxy would remember this lesson for generations to come. Asterisk